We're still getting the practice of getting back to the real world, you know, and we're doing everything a bit slowly because, you know, so anyway, welcome. Thank you for your patience. It's so great to see each other again, like half of ourselves in the real world, but we're very optimistic that this is going to change for the better. Like we are both techno-optimists and life optimists, and we keep so far optimists. so it's great to see you again. Yeah. Now I want to hear the jokes as well. So anyway, like I want to know, as always, like if there's anyone who is visiting us for the first time. Yeah, well, the family is growing. That's so great. Like, welcome to the XRVienna family. Like we are, like as you can read there in the back, like we are not only a community, we are not only professionals in this loving industry, but we're also a family, and which means that like I'm going to connect a bit. As I said, like I'm getting used to the real world, so I'm talking to you as I'm going to talk to my aunt, you know. So we are not really, you know, like super, we don't want to make this a super formal event, you know, because we want this to feel like we are human beings who are meeting again, and we're friends and we're family. So, so you know already a bit about XRVienna. Like, would you like to share some? I'm sorry, like we are sharing as well the moderation for the first time. Like Flavia has joined the team together with Manu now, so the family, the XRVienna team family is also growing. So yeah.
Thank you so much, Klaus, and I'm really welcome also from my side, and I'm super happy to have you. We are super happy to have you here for our first event of 2022. And I just wanted to say a few words about XRVienna, also for the new people here. So XRVienna started in 2015 with Klaus. So thank you for this. And we are now 1,195 people on our meetup, and we are also almost 7 years existing. So we are a growing family. It's always nice to have more people, and this is a place to share. So it was born as a platform to unite creators and users. And we are happy to have this, and we are looking forward to share knowledge. We are here all equals. So our motto is no ego, no shame, and this is also why we are here. There is no hierarchy, and we are just here to learn and to share our knowledge. And I also would like to mention that today we are in the International Women's Day, and we are super happy for this, and we would like to also congratulate our three speakers. It's nice to see so many women, and I would just like to say
Women's Day!
All the women in tech that they are showing that we can do this in this world, so I'm super happy.
Absolutely. I mean, as Flavia said, you know, we started the meetups in 2015 actually, and we have seen, like, we have to speak about the positive as well. I mean, we have seen so much change in bringing, bringing equality to tech as well. When it comes to Austria, at least, like we have seen this change, and we're very happy to keep encouraging it, and we're very happy to nurture it. And this is also, I'm connecting it to another very exciting topic in a new chapter of XRVienna, that we have also joined forces with Women in Immersive Tech Europe, and this is why you're seeing the banner today, because we want to focus very much starting this year on diversity in tech, especially supporting women in Austria and in the world. And we want this to be a platform in which women have not only opportunities, but they also feel safe and empowered to share what they know. And we also want to thank Talent Garden for having us here. And I would also like to thank Immersive as well, because Flavia and Manu are working, they have a company named Immersive, and as you know, these events are organized by a lot of time and effort and resources, so thank you for Flavia, Manu, Immersive, and also Axel that is there on the streaming today. So Axel and I are also vrisch. So vrisch is also our baby, and we are also powering the events for you guys to also probably do the same with other people. Like, we want this to be an all you can share. So today's event is about behavior, identity, and self in immersive environments. So Flavia, would you like to tell us a bit more about it?
So we have 3 amazing speakers here today, which are Vera Borrmann from MIYOMI and Klaus Neudlinger from Institute for Cultural Excellence. Right? Yes. And then we have Gersa Tome from PwC. And so we will have a bit more theoretical approach to VR today, also from fields of embodiment research, philosophy, and organizational culture. I would like just to really briefly say the agenda for today. We have first part, which will be inside here with the 3 talks, and then we will have a fireside chat, and also with questions or Q&A from our audience. This is not only the physical one, but the event is also streamed on YouTube and on Discord, so we also have some questions from there. And then in the second part, we would really like to extend and to network a lot. So we have all this floor, a lot of space. We also have an experience corner, so a VR installation, and we would really like just to take the time to exchange with it, like talk to each other and having some networking sessions.
Absolutely. And a small comment about the topic of today, you know, like to put, we always hear, or at least in my experience, like we hear too many talks about tech when it comes to immersive technologies, but not enough talks about how to merge different areas of expertise with this technology. So we need this, and we need this exchange in order to make meaningful experiences that are also serving the people that we're trying to reach. So the first step to do that is starting with our own minds, right? I mean, what does it mean? Who are we in these virtual environments, right? I mean, or who are we, or who do we become when we are in these environments? And one story that comes to mind is, like, I will be brief because I was, you know, I can talk for 3 days. But like I'm Paraguayan, as you know, and I'm living in Austria. So the sense of identity, for example, like feeling like eventually you feel like you're neither from here or nor there, right? I mean, you start belonging to something that is a bit an in-between, right? So like I needed to really find who I was, no, in the real world. So this was also something that I found very interesting when it comes to like the metaverse, for example. No, we are creating a land there that we're all going to coexist in this land, and we're trying to create the rules right now. So what is this going to mean, right? I mean, how is this going to be translated into our diversity, for example, diversity in every sense of the word, right? And also, how are we going to protect ourselves and others from danger? How are we going to interact with one another? And or who are the people who are actually exploring these questions already? So for today, we kind of prepared, we were joking about this before, like it's like a cheese tasting, right? That we said, okay, we start with the camembert, then we end up with the parmesan, no? So we talk about what is like the kind of questions that we can have, right? We're going to have Vera that is telling us about like what does it mean like for us to embody this, be present in this technology, or what does it mean our relationship with technology well, she would tell you everything about it, right? I'm not going to ruin it. And then there's the question of, okay, what can we do about it? Like the kind of questions that we have in our heads, and how can we apply it to concrete cases, right? And then we have Gersa that is going to actually present us a case study and how we can interpret like personalities, for example. How can we analyze personalities in VR? Is this like, where is this heading to? So we hope you enjoy it. And with these words, I would like to introduce our first speaker of the evening, which is Vera Borrmann. And I'm going to give the introductions very short, so we don't have you in this room for longer than more or less like an hour and a half. So you feel comfortable as well networking outside and sharing some drinks with everyone. So welcome, Vera. How do I get my presentation here? Ah, yeah. An important part, no?
Windows user, sorry.
Yeah, no, Windows user. Nice. You give me a PC, I'll do exactly. There, let's just pass it with this. Mm-hmm.
Okay, hi, my name is Vera, and yeah, I will try to stay to my 10 minutes. I try to talk not too fast, but yeah, it's also my first time after a while speaking to like real people, so. Yeah, so I'm the founder of MIYOMI, Mind Your Mind, and as you can see already in the title, it's a quite huge topic that I try to cover. New realities, old questions, what body-mind relation has to do with who you are. I have more a theoretical approach, so this is not a concrete project that I was doing. But it will bring up, hopefully, some new questions, because I think that's what philosophers are best at, and what's our profession actually. To the outline, I will guide you through my approach and my expertise, so telling you also a little bit why I'm sitting here today. And I will also talk a little bit about the term embodiment, so body-mind relation, what it actually is, because I think some of you might not be familiar with embodiment as a term. Then on the third point we have, what does embodiment have to do with VR? So why should we talk about that? Enactivism is sort of a subcategory of embodiment, which is, I think, the most important one in embodiment that we should see or talk about when we are in VR environments. I will end with a conclusion, and I think this conclusion will also bring up questions, actually. So, who am I? I'm standing here with two professions today. I'm an embodiment trainer and coach, so I'm working with basically everything that has to do with self-awareness, body awareness, sensual awareness, and meditation. And secondly, I am a researcher in philosophy. I'm actually always working in interdisciplinary teams, and the topics are usually related to embodiment and human-technology relationships, especially in human enhancement, so the non-therapeutical part of what we can do with humans to get them better. Two projects I'm currently involved in are Future Body at the KIT, Karlsruhe Institute of Technology. What we do in this project is basically to assess the impact of any kind of neurotechnology on the human body. So, for example, the example that we have is Elon Musk and the Neuralink. So something like this is located in this project. The second one is Agency and Neurotechnology at Freiburg Institute of Advanced Studies. So this is a little bit more in the therapeutical bubble, more or less. It deals with deep brain stimulation for people who suffer from depression, and yeah, so we are trying to find out what deep brain stimulation actually does to your sense of agency if you are a person who just got this in this device. Embodiment. Embodiment is a term that is used and applied in philosophy, in neuroscience, in psychiatry, in psychology, various other therapy forms, and also in coaching. And as I have already mentioned, embodiment or an acted mind, which means enactivism, which we will talk later on about, is a quite radical standpoint in the discussion about the relation of body-mind or body-brain or body cognition. Depends on which discipline you're from. And in embodiment, and especially in enactivism, it's less about describing two entities and what these entities are about. It's more about the relation that these two entities have. So it's more about the in-between and less about finding the core of these two entities. Research on embodiment, and why is this important for VR? If we consider the case of full immersive VR, then it would mean that we encompass every sense of the user, and VR would also eventually interact directly with the brain and the nervous system of the user. So most likely it would completely immerse the user inside VR. So the questions that we have to point there is actually what what do we do with the reality that we have right now? Does it become obsolete? And what is more important for me, speaking about embodiment, is also what does it actually mean to be a body, and what does it mean to be to the world or to be in the world. So we are talking about our body and we are talking about environment. No matter what your answer is to this question, the answer is 100% related to embodiment, and it will have a radical impact on your perception of how you perceive identity and self, and also about how you perceive your social and environmental relationship, and also your relationship to technology, because also technology is sort of our environment. So there is no distinction between there is nature and this is the environment and technology is not. But I'm quite aware that I open up the box of Pandora, more or less. So I won't talk about all of this, no worries. I try to keep the story a little bit shorter, and I will talk about enactivism. And what is the interesting thing about talking about enactivism is more to distinguish between dualism and to distinguish between processuality, as we have said before. I will try to shortly explain dualism, and then we will go into enactivism. What is dualism all about? It's about binary oppositions. So that's what we usually hear a lot in the risk assessment discourse, that we have machine versus human, or body versus brain, or technology versus nature. So we always have these two polarities that I was talking about before, one entity versus the other. And usually we think about them as being in two different spheres, so they don't have a connection. But what actually enactivism is talking about, if you take the example body-mind, that body and mind are a union. So you can think about it as like a coin. The coin has two sides. So one is the body, one is the mind, but actually the coin stays the same. So that's what enactivism brings forth as the union of body-mind. The other point I already mentioned, it's more about the becoming, and it's more about the development, and less about less about static. So it's not, it's there forever and it stays like this, but it's more about the development. The body-mind union is embodied and embedded, and this includes interaction. So that's the two questions that we were pointing about to in the beginning. It's about being a body, embodiment, and it's about being in the world, which is embedded. So according to enactivism, it's never the case that you are embodied and you don't have any contact to your world. It cannot be. And it's also, you are not your brain. Your brain is a part of your body, so there's also no possible distinction between these. Another interesting point in enactivism is also that enactivism assumes that there is never a passive perception, there's always only active perception. And by actively perceiving, you are bringing forth the world, and you are obviously also acting in this world. So you cannot distinguish this kind of top-down relationship that you are just passively perceiving but nothing happens. I mean, it's always bringing forth. And following this, we have to acknowledge that adding extended perception options or new realities or virtual realities to our experience will have a direct impact on body-mind union and also on the environment. We already head to our conclusion and to our questions, more or less. I have 3 points for you that I would like to highlight. First one is the interaction in human-technology relationships brings much more awareness and more responsibility as a user, but also as a development person. So, yeah, the power dynamic is even higher than if you would just say, okay, it's a top-down communication model. In my point of view, embodiment theory and especially enactivism is also a much better theory for describing human-technology relationships on a meta level. So I'm pretty sure that embodiment theory will play a bigger role in the VR context in the future. And another thing that I would like to bring forth is that usually when we are talking about risk assessment or technology assessment, then most of the time the discourse about human-machine relation or new emerging technologies is shaped from the view of biology or medicine or sociology. And it's most of the time pointing to this binary oppositions between human and technology or machine. So often you have questions like, we have to take care, maybe we are losing the core of humanness, whatever it is, and what are the social or political implications. So it's usually a descriptive data that we are talking about, and it's less about the felt sense of the individual. And what I would say, what is absolutely important for VR is that we take more into consideration qualitative research methods and not only descriptive methods, because it can be whatever is measured in your brain. Sometimes it doesn't have to do something with how do you feel actually. And I think this would be much more important when we are dealing with new realities. So this was my very hopefully short talk that I had, and I brought you a comic, and Gabs love it, so far to the felt experience, and I give the word to Klaus.
Now we would like to talk to Klaus.
I'm sorry that I have to.
Yeah, exactly. That's how I look like in the VR, 20 like every time. That's it. Standard mode. If you need help, let me know.
I will take up, I think, the most important notion Vera brought up, the felt sense. I'm talking to you because I had the pleasure and the honor to direct a huge research project that has involved 5 institutions. You see them all here, from very different backgrounds and disciplines, and it was funded by the FFG. I always have to mention that.
Very loud.
And we built a prototype. And in this prototype, it's a VR scene, an interactive VR scene. The player takes the role of a middle management officer, and he has to go through, or she has to go through a difficult discussion with a collaborator. And if you want to try it out, you can do so. There is Stefan from the AIT, and he has built up a VR set at the end of the hall. And afterwards, if Stefan will be pleased to welcome you, and then you can feel and sense the VR experience. So, my point of view, my perspective today is that of a teacher, I would say, because we built up a prototypical training scene. So I would like to share some thoughts with you regarding to the question regarding the question how to construct VR training, which goes beyond the experience in the narrow sense of the term. So the topic is how social is VR. And, actually, this is a screenshot of the scene, and I begin from our project, and then I will go on to a more general level. So the Virtual Skills Lab project investigated on how to effectively use virtual reality scenarios for the training of social competences, such as empathy and the ability to collaborate with others in teams. Obviously, this was not the first and only attempt to build a prototype for training human-human interaction by simulating it in a technology-mediated environment. In my talk, I will very briefly outline 4 points of interest to VR as a tool for training social skills. First, I will describe the different technological design solutions and options. Second, I will argue why VR is a space in which sociality evolves and why this is not only good news. Third, I will describe a stance that argues against VR as a training tool for social skills. And fourth, I will explain why, nevertheless, VR has the potential to serve as a useful training tool and how a training program that involves VR should be designed. So, as to the solutions. Up to date, there are 3 solutions, roughly, for using VR for training simulations in this area. The first, human beings are immersed in a simulated scene filmed via 360-degree video. In this case, the player cannot directly interact with the actors of the scene, yet they are involved, e.g. by having to decide how they would react at certain points of the scene. Second, human beings interact within a computer-generated virtual environment by controlling avatars. In this case, role-playing video games are used for training purposes. Simulation regards the environment, players' physical appearance, and the situation. And third option, human beings interact with socially interactive agents, or NPCs, in computer-generated environments. In this case, technologies like speech or emotion recognition, chatbots, and natural language processing contribute to the construction of a setting and an interaction that is perceived by the trainees as human-human interaction. There is a recognizable progression from solution 1 to 3, while the 360 degrees solution draws primarily on the immersive quality of the images provided by this video technique that surrounds the player. The avatar solution extends the possibilities of role-play games by bringing people together who are physically separated. Solution 3 draws on machine learning and the possibilities of a truly interactive technology that pretends to replace human interaction partners. Any of the solutions has its advantages and disadvantages, and it depends on the didactic aims which one is the most suitable for a VR-based training of social skills. Now sociality in VR, not only regarding training applications, the avatar solution can be regarded as the most social one for the moment. If by social we mean the variety of ways People relate to each other by experiencing direct interaction. There is a rising number of platforms like Altspace in which people gather for talking, party, concerts, discussions, worship, and so on. As Peter Rubin describes in his book Future Presence, people build up close friendship relationships in VR communities. They fall in love with each other and even organize weddings. On the other hand, disturbing accounts of mobbing and sexual harassment have caused discussions on rules of conduct and technical solutions of preventing harm to users. Many of you will have followed these discussions. Virtual environments apparently reproduce negative structural aspects of how people relate to each other. In VR settings, people tend to reproduce behaviors that structurally harm human relationships in the real world, also in virtual environments. That, taken in this sense, VR is as social as society itself, is not only good news. So, the case against using VR for training social skills. Hence, we do not cast off our personality, nor the behavioral and cultural patterns we have acquired in the course of our lifetime by putting on a head-mounted display. However, the question is if VR can contribute to changing and evolving behavioral patterns for the better. It is not a chance that among the VR solutions for training social skills, there are several applications that deal with diversity, discrimination, and racism. There are several of them. By having the possibility to walk a mile in another's shoes, players are brought to experience communicative situations from the perspective of people of color or homeless persons. If we look at the results of academic research with respect to the effectiveness of this type of training, we face an ambiguous picture. On the one hand, a VR training experience can enhance the capacity of perspective taking and strengthen affective as well as cognitive empathy towards others. On the other hand, there is the risk that prejudices are even reinforced by using VR. In any case, as Rita Omoka points out in an article published on Wired, it is not really possible to address the structural dimensions of racism or anti-Semitism by giving people the possibility to make a very short experience of how it feels to be discriminated against. The experience of discrimination is deeply anchored in the biography of people of color, and it structurally divides their experience from that of white people. This gap cannot be bridged by running through a VR training in which one for 20 minutes experiences how it feels to be part of a minority. So, how should we or can we use VR for training social skills? Nevertheless, from my view and experience, it is not useless to draw on the possibility to provide experience-based training instruments when it comes to developing social skills. The potential of VR lies in the opportunity to trigger and guide processes of varying experience and interaction. Here theoretically I'm very close to Vera because variation to vary is a very important concept of phenomenology. And it can be used in these environments. As human beings, we are endowed with the capacity not only to be subject to our experience of the world, but to reflect on it and shape it together with others. We are capable of experiencing the world in the as-if mode, in form of memories, imaginations, plans and wishes for the future and simulations. Our being in the world consists in participating in many possible worlds. As a medium, VR can provide us with environments and settings that foster our capacity to approach social situations from many different angles. In the long run, this can enhance our capacity to take the other people's perspective and to behave and relate to them in a different way. The crucial point, that's my point, is that trainings be conceived of in a comprehensive way. Of course, they should contain experience-based and gaming elements, but these have to be embedded in a learning context in which there is also room for reflexive observation, abstract conceptualization, and active experimentation, to name the other three stages of Kolb's learning cycle. In our prototypically scene, the stage of concrete experience is run through by the players in a simulated dialogue with a socially interactive agent. After having experienced the emotional reaction of the virtual character, you can try it afterwards, how it feels, players enter the stage of reflexive observation, in which they run through the whole dialogue again, but from an external view. At every passage, they are invited to express themselves on their own feelings during the dialogue, but also on the feelings and thoughts the virtual character might have had. Perspective taking is trained in a reflective way and thus regards rather the cognitive dimension of empathy. If we wanted to address the affective dimension, we would have to design a virtual setting in which the dialogue is experienced from the point of view of the virtual character. And there are solutions that do that. For example, the application Body Swaps. And what I really recommend is have a look at The Machine to Be Another. It's the most impressive experiment in this area. Afterwards, you can ask me for it. Still, for a comprehensive training, we would have to add theoretical inputs on topics such as empathy and perspective taking, abstract conceptualization, and provide methods allowing the participants to apply their knowledge in everyday situations. Active experimentation. Passing from simulation to reality. We call that transfer. You will know that. It would be possible, to come back to the technical solutions, to design a scene like ours in each of the three technological solutions described above. If you choose the 360-degree video, you can emphasize the fact that in communicative situations you continuously take decisions. You choose one of several opportunities. By that, you raise trainees' awareness that this will influence how the conversation evolves. If you choose the avatar solution, you are the closest you can get to a real situation, so it will be suitable for training units at the beginning or the end of workshops in order to link theoretical knowledge and practical exercise. If you design the scene, as we have done, with a socially interactive agent, you can vary a lot regarding the physical appearance of the character or other characteristics that more or less unconsciously influence our communicative behavior. As we have seen, the structural dimensions of social interaction should be addressed in a social skills training, but the topic has to be elaborated and discussed with the participants, for example, in a workshop setting. So that's from my side, some insights, and I invite you once more to experience our dialogue with Vera Borrmann. Okay, thank you. Also, with respect to the references, you can ask me afterwards. And we have, up to now, we have published some work on the project.
And now we welcome Gersa to come.
Okay. So.
Yeah, the HDMI. Oh, sorry. This one over here. I love how you come in like the computer party here.
Yeah. Yeah. I do not. Yeah.
Looking more
Yeah.
Oh, you need. Okay, I was gonna say you can push it back
Sorry.
as well.
Sorry.
Oh, yes, technology.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So many wires. No.
I did not get my
Also the computer
cool
has a body.
laptop today, so
I know, I'm forgivable.
yeah, my consultant-like laptop is gonna have to do. Okay, so that this works now. But it works on my laptop, you know?
If not, we can try to copy the presentation.
Yeah,
Yeah, there it sounded like it's connected. Let's see.
it was connected
Yeah.
earlier.
Yeah, it takes a minute. I
It
think
takes maybe it takes a
I think
minute.
it will in a second.
Okay, Monica.
Okay.
Ah, so you said,
wow,
it's always an
yes.
explanation of everything.
Yeah.
But luckily the solution, it wasn't like turning on and off, like off and on again, no? I mean, like,
Off
it's
and on again, off and on again. Okay, cool. Where do I go to present mode now? Ah,
Big question. Slideshow, yeah.
okay, cool.
Super.
Nice. Well, that proves that I work in tech. Not. Okay, so hello everyone. My name is Gersa Tome. Today I'm going to show you a use case of VR, a very interesting and particular use case of VR, because it involves figuring out one's personality. This project is called Virtual Reality Personality Assessment, and the way we came to this project was quite interesting, quite challenging. We did not think that the end product would be the way it ended up to be in the very end, because we had a lot of ideas in the beginning. Some of them were not really shaped, so it was quite an interesting journey, so to say. So as you can see by the title, the challenge is to assess one's personality, because it's always a challenge to do that. And to make things even harder, we wanted to do this in VR. So we wanted to combine two very challenging things. So one, to make the user feel very comfortable while being in a VR environment. And the other, delivering an assessment of his or her personality. So the psychological background behind this project is actually Hexaco. Hexaco is a very well-known psychological module, and this is the psychological heart of the project. This is the point that started everything, basically. So Hexaco is in its core a test, a paper pen test, which takes you through a bunch of questions, and in the very end you have a report on your personality. I'm pretty sure some of you might have done some personality assessments before. I for sure have. I had to for this project quite a lot. They all ended up in the same result for my personality, which confirmed my beliefs, but anyways. So we started from here, and then we wanted to find a way to make this, a game in the end, to make this enjoyable and to have this experience go through VR. So what we chose is to have this as a fully immersive VR experience. So this was designed for Oculus Rift actually in the beginning, and then now we're converting it to be compatible with Quest 2 through an APK. While we did all of this conversion, the important aspect was gamification. So how do we make this also enjoyable? Because in the very end,
how do you make an experience that is enjoyable for the user, if not including gamification in the equation? So this is the what, the why, and the how behind this project. As you can see there, that little mark there. To be not modest now, this is a token of validation for this project. We actually won the first place in the Digital Impulse Award, the first place in the category of digital transformation, and that because the aim behind this project is to transform, to digitally transform recruiting processes. So in PwC, as in other companies, we always have the issue of not only finding the right person, but also finding the right person to fit the company culture. This is a very tricky thing because it goes beyond the things that you see in job opening entries, and this is something that might come as a surprise. So culture might come as a surprise when you start working for a new company. And to kind of make this thing breach, you know, and to fill in the gaps, we thought, okay, let's create this game and have what we think in PwC is important for our cultural values, and match this with what we see from the applicants. So this was the whole idea in mind, you know. Okay, let's find the right candidate, but let's find the right candidate for our values. So this is what this project is in its nutshell. The reasons why we wanted to do this, except for, you know, increasing the efficiency, so on and so forth, in the very end is because it puts you out there, it gives you an edge. It gives, when you see the employer, you want to make this part of the assessment center to give the applicants something new, something cool, and something that helps them actually through the application process, rather than give them a minus, so to say. So this was the kind of roadmap to develop what we have now, a working project, a working prototype. As the curves go by, trust me, that is how it also went in real life with the ups and downs. The planning was, I would say, the easiest part, because we kind of knew the challenges behind, you know, recruiting, what we were facing, where we were aiming to go. And then from this part to this part, let me tell you, it was a journey, because when you combine two different worlds, you have gamification, and then you have psychology, and then you put things that need to be deliver and need to be measured, you know, in the very end, things get a bit complicated. So the way we did this was actually with the help of two psychologists that we had in our team. They helped us to validate every single idea that we had behind creating, you know, actions in the VR game. And then in the very end, what we had this working prototype, and we said, okay, before continuing any further, let's test this. You know, let's test this with real people. So what we did is we actually got PwC employees, and we put them through this game. So they got the same scenario as new joiners would have. And in the very end, we gave them, you know, their personality profile results. We also compared this with the paper pen test from Hexaco, and also a short interview that we did, you know, with each of them to see where this was going, and to see how the results were comparing, to see whether the VR experience showed something different from Hexaco, or the interview showed something different from Hexaco. So to take this module and translate it in a VR game, as most of you know, you cannot do it one by one, you know. You have 100 questions, you're not gonna translate every single question into a VR action, because it's impossible. Some of them might include, I don't know, let's say one VR action, evaluating 10 questions out of Hexaco, so to say. So it's not a one-by-one translation. We actually focused on agreeableness, in here because and openness to experience because they were the parts of Hexaco that matched with PwC global values. This is an example of how we made a single translation. So for example, facet and subfacet, openness to experience and creativity. This would be the statement, this in here would be the statement in Hexaco in the paper pen test that you would need to choose an answer from 1 to 5 in a Likert scale. The VR task would actually be to furnish an empty room, so an empty room for which you would need to choose the furniture, and the characteristics of the furniture and of the choices that you make and the behavior that you have during that time will be recorded and analyzed. This is also the other example, which actually was quite funny because that specific VR task proved to be quite useful because, surprise, surprise, people are quite revengeful. They like to give spicy food to their colleagues, even in a digital and funny game. So the schema of how we translated Hexaco to the game is more or less this one. So we took Hexaco, we focused on A and O from Hexaco, and we put this in front of PwC global values and what's important for us. How it works in the back scene. So the game is divided into 4 phases. Is the furnishing phase, then it's the interaction with your colleagues. So in this scenario, you have some colleagues. They give you some requests, some special feedback on the choices that you make for this empty room. And then in the end, they evaluate you with some stars. And you, after all of this interaction, you have to order lunch for them. And of course, it happens that at the moment that some of them, for example, gave you 1 star out of 5, oops, their hand slips a bit and the chili increases. So yeah, this is something that half of the team actually was convinced that would never happen. Yeah. So it was one of those features that we were thinking actually to remove because we thought who would even change, the spiciness level. But yeah, it proved to be quite useful. All of these phases of the game are registered, of course, with log entries. So from the very moment that you click on start until the moment that you exit the room, every single thing is recorded. And we take this data collection and we put it in a data analysis algorithm. And based on the results that we get, we categorize that in a personality profile that each of the people get, based on which you have the final feedback with the recruiter. So this is just an example of how the report would look like. So these are 4 main parts in which we focus for PwC. The report now actually looks a bit different. We updated it recently. So you would get this scale in here and the scale with the PwC global values. So we have care, work together, and reimagine the possible. This is just an example of how a score would look like. And in the end, they also get this VR souvenir, so to say, so like a snapshot from their VR room. They actually like this feature quite a lot. So how can we make sure that we assess what we are supposed to do? So of course we had our doubts along the way, and we still have them. We cannot say 100% that what we're doing, it's bulletproof and nothing can break it. But when we created the tool, it was very important for us to have the validation study going on, and the findings helped us prove that what we had done worked, and what we had done was in alignment with our goals. Of course, there's a lot of analysis, a lot of statistics that goes behind, making this this project work and this project valuable. But if we ignore this, the numbers part, I would say that you feel if a project is working in VR by the feedback that the people give you. So at the moment that you have users, first-time users in VR, going through the game and actually showing their true colors and forgetting what they were actually there for, I think it's quite a good validation point already that goes beyond the numbers, I would say. This is our VRPA microsite. You can scan the QR code to learn more about it. We also have the report that goes through the whole experience and the findings. I hope the QR code works. In there you can also find the core part of the team, so not just me. I cannot do all of this alone, of course.
The link works very well.
Cool. Okay, one thing works. Okay, cool. And if you're interested and would like to try the experience, you're more than welcome. You can reach out to me and come to the PwC office and try out the game. Thank you.
Super.
Thank you so much, Gersa. Well, thank you, Klaus and Vera as well. We were just there in the background to give you more time because you know how it goes. So we wanted to ask you, are you doing fine? Are you doing all right? You're enjoying yourself? Do you need anything? Would you like to quickly get something to drink or not? All good? Okay, super. So now we're going to start with a fireside chat. Actually, we were planning a panel discussion, and then we thought, okay, why not making a fireside chat to make it a bit more cozy and relaxed with our questions? And then we thought, okay, why making it one or the other in the first place? I mean, let's just have an interesting conversation. We also would like to hear from you if you have some questions for the speakers. So if we just need like 1 minute to just put the chairs here. So yeah, that's okay. We made it extra uncomfortable, you know, so we don't make you speak forever, or also me not speaking forever, you know, so. Here. Is it okay for you? Yeah, okay. No, just yeah, okay, yeah. We make the fire is right here, no? Like the fireplace. Right there. So, yeah. We're going to share the questions as well because I don't know where my paper is. So if it's okay for you, like if it's okay for you guys, like does any of you have a question already that you would like to ask?
Yes. I mean, I would have one question. I just noted regarding what Klaus was talking about. I mean, you mentioned the learning cycle from core, when you have this, let's say in the beginning, this concrete experience, and then you have active experimentation in the end. So I'd like to ask you, what's the main difference between those two? Because I mean, for me, experiencing something going through would be very similar, but what's the concept behind?
I think in the Kolb systematic, the difference is that concrete experience is something more, something you go through without having a concrete plan and concrete concepts, while active experimentation is, for example, if you have gone through an experience and there is something you want to learn about. You reflect on it, and then maybe you get some theoretical input, and then you plan, okay, the next time I will go through this kind of experience, I will focus on this, I will act like this. To take an example from social skills training, maybe people have difficulties in asking questions. They don't ask questions, and they go out and they don't know what they should do. And so active experimentation would be this, to go through an experience and say, I try to ask a question, although it's difficult. It's difficult for me. And then you go through the whole cycle again. So that's why he calls it active experimentation, because you have some plan and you try to put it into practice.
Before we proceed to the next question, I really have to do something because I'm not a perfectionist, but I pay attention to details, and there's something that has been bugging me for a long time, that I prepared a beautiful background for this moment. And if it's not there, you know, there's something missing, you know, it's like salt missing from the food, you know, we need the spices.
But not too much.
But not too much, yeah, not the chili in the soup, no, so. And I also found my question, so. There you go. Wow. Now it looks better, doesn't it? It looks better like this, no? Different here. We changed, no?
Yeah, that's the effect of PwC.
I like it how the three of you look like you're like thinking like very much, you know? So it's like worse. Yeah? Please.
Yeah, the general question, like, why do you think there is so much interest in VR application? It's mostly training, like any kind of training scenario in various fields, right? It seemed to me, as an outside observer, like the first thing that came to mind, not just today, but like in general with what friends and people are doing in VR, it's mostly like a training scenario for something. Why do you think that is? Why is it specific to this medium? Maybe. A question to all.
Sure. I can start on that. I will give you an answer based on my own experience with with my team on VR. So when I first started working on VR, we were focusing on a lot of use cases, and I actually started working with VR in combination. So in the use case of data visualization. So it was. And it still is one of the least tangible use cases you can find for VR. One of the use cases that you will not hear a lot of people clap for, or a lot of people, go crazy about. And then we saw the other use cases that were more, close to people that do not have VR in their day-to-day work, or the people that just read about VR here and there, from different articles. And when you find VR in training, this is one of those use cases, okay, a general one because there's different trainings, but this is one of those things that really gets through to people, to every single person working in, I don't know, many different industries. Because it makes sense, you say, okay, we're gonna make a VR training in this and that field because this and that reason. And the idea is, since trainings happen in the real world, and the real world is three-dimensional, and the real world is costly, dangerous, all of those scenarios, VR is a very good medium, to minimize all of these so to say negative aspects, and this makes sense to everybody. If you're gonna pitch this to your boss who doesn't know a lot about VR, but you pitch this argument, okay, he's gonna do the math and he's gonna say this is a great use case. So I think the reason that VR and trainings go so well along is because it's tangible and easy for everybody to grasp. This is my take. I don't know.
So I remember this, now that you said this dangerous, expensive and stuff, no? That actually I was learning it from you, no, Axel? He's very quiet there because he's taking care of the streaming, no? But he's also part of the team. Like when it makes sense in VR, like when it makes sense to do a project in VR, no? And it's these dire cases, no? Like when it's like dangerous, impossible, remote, or expensive. No? So this is something that, as Gersa said, there are some situations, for example, if you have to send like a lot of people to the mountains, for example, to train, no? Like if there's an avalanche, I mean, why sending them to a real avalanche if you can simulate that in VR? So yeah, I just wanted to add that these dire cases, no? So
I mean, if you think of the history of VR, what was one of the first applications? The flight simulators. So it's deeply rooted in the history of this technology. On the other hand, if you, for example, if I quoted Peter Rubin's book on VR, and he more or less he has tried out anything, and he also looks into the future. And there is not so much focus on training in this book. So it's more on gaming, the communities that gather for the most different reasons. There is also a chapter on how the porn industry uses VR and so on. So you have very different, and also if you go, I mean, just read the texts of Jaron Lanier, you have so many different purposes, and not maybe not in the first side.
It's like an early adopter stage, as you also just said, probably that come in early. They need some training. Like the first thing you do on the headset is you have to do some training to get to.
Yeah, it's always experiencing. Experiencing has to do with processes, with evolution and so on. But there are, I mean, VR is actually, if you take the commercial side, I think gaming is much more important than training at the moment, I would say. Or
I wouldn't call it important, I would call it like different functions. No? Like we're diversifying functions, right? I mean, the more we understand about the technology, the more use cases we can think about it, and the more we're making these connections between one industry or one sector to the next. And I think this is why like we're hearing a lot about training, for example, now, because it's like the next step of our wondering, no? Like how can we apply it to cases in real life, in our daily lives, and so on and so forth. I think one thing doesn't take another. That's just my opinion on it. Anyone else has a question?
Yeah. First of all, I want to thank great thank you for organizers, because yeah, I think it's quite rare, you're totally right, that people are focusing not on technological aspects only, but cognitive aspects as well, and this is like crucially important. We can talk about immersiveness from all these technical parameters, but we forget about how we should feel, like a sense of presence, sense of immersive sense of embodiment. And this is more abstract question. I myself study embodied VR, so more question maybe for Vera and for Klaus, I guess. It's more maybe relevant as researchers. Is that how you actually feel, how much it is important in the commercial VR, for instance, and so on, to have this sense of embodiment from cognitive perspective, whether it's really important for our cognition in realizing in any kind of VR scenarios, and if it's important, how you think is it possible to do it, and if you think it's possible, then how? So what are the most important parameters? I mean, maybe you will just answer to my PhD thesis now in this. But yeah, I'm very.
Thesis check. No.
Yeah, I mean, I gave some hints in my presentation. I referred to, in particular, I referred to two solutions. One is called body swaps, and it is based on the research of Mel Slater, which is one of the most central figures in Europe, in the European context of VR research, also from a theoretical point of view. Actually, he coined the notion of presence and so on and so forth. And Slater, he's based in Barcelona and in London, I think, and they did a marvelous thing. They constructed the virtual Sigmund Freud. It's good, we are in the 9th district here, very, very close to Sigmund Freud's bureau. And how does it function? And here it comes to the cognitive function and what embodiment has to do with it. They made some testings with, I think, with students, and it was about self-counseling. So we all have our good propositions. I want to be better at this, at that, and so on. And it's a reflexive process. And in VR, you can stage this process by doubling yourself. It's the mirror function. So what they did was that they recorded people and put them into VR while they were giving advice to themselves. And in the next stage, instead of themselves, there was a figure like Sigmund that was like Sigmund Freud, and the result is that people in tendency accepted more the advice given by Sigmund Freud than by their own mirror, and that's really, really funny. And body swabs then transformed this into, let's say, maybe a less funny but a more professional setting, in which what happens? For example, you're a supervisor, and you have a very difficult employee, and he's complaining about his colleagues, and then you have to tell him how he should behave towards his colleagues. And in the next scene, the perspective changes, and you see yourself talking from the perspective of your employee. And so you have a very intense feeling of what is your impact on other persons. And I conclude here. I also mentioned the Be Another Lab, which is, I said, the most fantastic experiment, and it's very low tech. You have very low tech VR displays, and there is a camera put on the display. And what happens is that you are paired, and you get the vision of the other one. So you have a live setting in which you perceive the world from the perspective from the other person. And they are doing. Just have a look at the site. They are really doing very interesting experiments that are embedded in socio-cultural contexts. It's about disability. It's about, they went to Palestine, to the refugee camps, and worked with people there, and so on and so forth. It's really a very impressive story.
Is anything to add?
No, but sorry to interrupt. No, like now that you were talking, I'm still thinking about this, like doubling yourself. You know, so it's impossible for me not to imagine. Like I also doubled myself, but in the shape of a little girl that is now 5 years old. You know, I mean, like everything that I didn't solve in myself, like I'm solving it in her. You know, like I'm seeing like this mirror that you're talking about. No, so I have, if it's okay for you, like I have a connecting question. You know, when it comes to this, like this double of yourself, it just reminded me of that. For Vera, actually. That I write my questions because otherwise like, I can speak here for like 3 days, as I always constantly mention, no? But think of what you were talking about, this relationship of body and mind, no? The sense of presence, no, makes virtual environments very compelling for young audiences, no. So, however, some questions are raised regarding the effects of this artificial spatial perception on a brain in development. No? So for instance, what about the natural limitations of the technology itself when it comes to interaction or navigation? Like what about sight, for example? Right? What about self-image and identity? What are those questions in this new context? And in your view, and this is my question, like how can we deal with these open questions in a way that we are proactive about addressing them with enough time to prevent potential risks?
It's a long question.
Yeah, exactly. Get to the point, Gabs, get to the point, no? But in a nutshell, like we're exposing young audiences to a technology that they don't fully understand yet. I mean, if we are trying to figure this out, what happens to a brain in development? You know, we learn how to walk, we learn how to see, we learn how to like how is this translating into virtual environments, and how is this going to alter our perception of the world in your side, or how can we prevent it affecting it negatively? Let's say.
Yeah.
Choose what to answer.
Well, I would say, I mean, for young audiences, for sure, that's even more important that you're not done with your body perception, and you're not done with your embodiment process. So you're not done with your perception of self or identity in a sense of in a structural way, more or less. So the thing is, you're still learning, and you're influenced by perceptions that are, as you called it, artificial. So the thing, what I think is important, that if you think about risk assessment, you have to know what do you want to consider as a risk, or what do you want to prevent. So if you don't know what is the stage, more or less, that you want to protect, then it's a little bit difficult to see how to assess the risk. And I think that we are still trying to close our eyes of stuff like, okay, we need to provide options also for children and also for us, I think, to ground ourselves in our body and in our felt sense. Because children, yeah, blah blah, they don't do so much sports anymore, they're sitting in front of their tablet, blah, blah, blah. But I think that's important, actually. If you don't have a reference on how does it feel without VR, how should you be able to balance it if you have a strong VR perception in a game or whatever? So you need to have yeah, it's about the polarity again, and you need to have a counterbalance, I think, to get back to, okay, who am I, how do I feel, where am I? And then I think you also have a better kind of agency to say, for example, at one point it's enough, or it's too much, or I don't want that. But if you don't have the self-perception of, okay, I feel like, how is this called when you are dizzy from VR? Cyber sickness, no? If you don't know that it's not normal, then you just go in again. But if you feel like, oh, that's weird, I know how I feel stable in my body, then you can maybe also say, that's too fast, or I don't want that. So I think to empower children and also ourselves to have a better sense of our body and of ourselves, I think this would be something that is risk assessment and risk preventing. So.
Okay. No, I mean, thank you for answering that, because with all these talks about the metaverse, for example, no, that we cannot ignore that we are talking about these things, no. So, like from my side as well, is important. An important message to get out there is that one thing doesn't replace the other, right? I mean that there's it's not like we're all going to live virtually, like starting now we're building an escape route to this world. I mean, this is something that one thing doesn't take away the other. And as you said, we have to keep talking about balance. We have to keep talking about experiencing both the physical world and the virtual world and put equal importance to it, right? And thank you for your answer.
Yeah, and I think it's also important to what you said in this tool. I mean, finally you are going to work in the company like for real. And not in the so still you have to get along with what's happening actually. It's a tool. It's nice to have this tool, but the tool is not the reality.
But I would actually have a question maybe which is also related to embodiment. I also wrote it down because I think it's pretty interesting to see how also the potential to go beyond representation in VR. So in VR environments allow us to have a different representations of ourselves, even through maintaining a strong attachment to our physical senses. So it's not so even attachment to our physical senses. So it's not so important how you look like in VR, but it's more how the person perceives and interacts with others, and also with the environment itself. And so the question would be, what do you think of this one-on-one representation of ourselves in VR? It has to be like one-on-one really how we look like, or could you imagine a different depiction of our bodies, so in more a post-human or post-anthropocentric sense of this unattached body from the representation, but which is still our identification, because I think many people is not identification in the physical world or how they feel. So I think VR in this sense can really provide a different way of perception of these bodies, and so how you see it, and maybe it's also open to everybody. The question.
I think, as you said before, I mean there's a huge potential in there. I'm just thinking also maybe about people who are in the gender discussion a little bit, like for example non-binary or whatever. So I think this could be super cool for the people to design a body to just feel as they feel, but you don't have to do all this medical, therapeutical stuff. But I think there is also maybe a danger in that you are, I mean, speaking of people who are maybe not very integrated with their body and their personality, I mean, you can also create a split, and this is dangerous, I think. I mean, that's not the same, but I think of these people who are, for example, getting stuck in World of Warcraft for 2 years or something.
Yeah. Or Instagram.
Or Instagram. Yeah, it's the same actually, because if you are for yourself, you are pointing a picture of yourself that is maybe yeah, in a gap relationship to who you are actually. I think it would not replace yeah, the real world change, but I think there can be a potential in it.
Yeah, I often quote a text written by Eva Wolfandi. She's a German journalist, and she specialized on VR, and she has done a lot of research and a lot of experiences in the diverse VR forums. And this is really a beautiful text. The title is "What I Learned About Reality in VR," and she and she tells 2 stories of encounters that are really touching. She says, okay, now I'm with my avatar, I'm in these communities, and there are 2 people that are really nice, and I would like to know them in reality. And there is a man, and he's always super, very sympathetic guy, and so on. And when she asks him and said, I'm a journalist, I would like to do some research, can I come to visit you? He's very reluctant. And at the end he accepts. And when she goes to meet him, she understands, because he's a kind of homeless person, and he's completely ashamed of his reality. And the other person, she gets to know, and this leads me to the 8th of March, is a woman in an Arab country, and she goes to meet her, and she says, okay, I can live traits of my personality inside VR that my society doesn't allow me to live. These would be 2 positive examples.
Yeah, I think this is really something great, and then I would even go beyond that and even ask if we really need to be humans, because like I think there are so many applications also in the last time, where in the last years, where you try, maybe you are a bird, or you can perceive the world differently, and I think this is something really fascinating, which is only VR is allowing that, because you still have this one-on-one perception. You are physical, like not physical, but you perceive like physical, but you can be not in your human body, but really perceive maybe the world through the eyes of something else and have a different perspective. And I think this is also something which I really find fascinating about that, and maybe really just going beyond and try different things.
Gerald Lanyard, sorry, just wanted to add up on that. Gerald Lanyard does this. I've seen, it was 3 years ago, and he was in out space doing one of his talks. Everybody had a very normal looking avatar, so to say. And then you had Gerald Lanyard, and he was a half squid, half human kind of thing. And it made me think, like, I mean, it's Gerald Lanyard, like, what do you expect? But still, it was something that until I saw it, you know, in him, I hadn't thought about it before. I mean, you can be whatever you like. Why do you have to be human? And yeah, this is just an example of people who go beyond, you know, that box that puts limits even in VR, you know, even in a world that you can literally create everything from scratch.
Yeah, good point. Yeah, I also had the Gerald Lanyard book in mind, no? Like, this is, virtual reality is a technology that exposes you to you, because you can be a rock and you can still be you, you know? So it's a very interesting thought to entertain, you know? So I think
But
you
let
were
me just
first.
add one. You have this in all ancient myths. Think of metamorphosis, think of any kind of culture, this kind of human, animal, transformation, human nature, and so on. So we all grow up with these possibilities.
And now we can see it.
Yeah.
Now we can test it, no? So no, it was you
Well,
first?
actually,
Yeah,
it's not so much
Sorry.
a question as a comment. I find it interesting that you pointed out those two examples as being positive examples, because they're precisely about this escapism, precisely about
It could be also like
You know, escaping reality into. So I just want to point out there's two ways to read this. It's not
In some cases yes, in some cases like I think like for example in some cultures, no, like you were mentioning the cultural difficulties, no, to live this reality that you know is for yourself, but you are not allowed to live this reality. Like sometimes it just as a personal experience as well, too long to explain, no? But sometimes you need this escape as your training wheels, let's say, to see that it can really happen, you know? That it's not just something that is a dream of yours or something that could be or could not be. And this is like, I see VR in some cases like these training wheels, no? To say it is possible, you know? And you don't have to expose yourself like to the real world. It's like exposure therapy, sort to say. Like to say, okay, I tested here and then I grow from there, no? But of course, this is very subjective.
Yeah, but it brings me also to a comment quickly.
Yeah?
Or do you have a question?
No, I also want to
I'm so happy that you're asking, Sandra. Like, we're so happy that you're participating. So, like you know,
Well,
you
if you
solved
want
it
to
with
comment,
yourself.
please
Yeah,
comment.
can I just really quick reply to you?
Just like one comment
Okay.
in terms of human-to-human interaction and what you mentioned, and which also relates to escapism and so on, because I think the escapism thing is also a way of role play, right? And that's exactly how human beings learn as being giants, right? Role play is a very important factor of learning, so that's one thing which I think is also facilitated by VR. The other comment I would have is, as you mentioned before, to have a different appearance, and I think that really depends on what you're doing in VR and what you're aiming at. Because especially if you talk about human interaction, I mean, I did lots of research on human-to-human mediated interaction, and there, let's say, a human appearance, at least having some kind of a human appearance, helps you in having social presence. Because I think social presence is one thing which you want to have in communication. I'm not talking about the presence which is nowadays measured in VR, which I think is a very bad concept, because that's exactly a technological viewpoint on measuring presence, whatever that is. Why is nobody talking about VR experience or user experience in VR, but only about presence? We are having 25, 80 items on presence, but what are people experiencing really there? So just like a short side note on this technological point of view, because there are engineers which can measure presence very well, but nothing else. Being an engineer myself, so I can say like this. But the other thing is really, if you want to have human-to-human interaction, then you need some kind of a human appearance. Because if you're talking to a bird, you can also do that, and we know there are novels where you have this kind of interaction, but it's a metaphorical kind of way of communicating. And I think if you really have this human-to-human interaction, then you also want to have at least some human appearance if you are in an interaction mood. If you are then switching to something else, that would be interesting to see also how that evolves by these possibilities technology gives us. Do we then learn to accept other kinds of, let's say, avatar creations, or are we still leaning towards more human interaction types?
I would feel tempted to next time I had a VR chat, you know, like to be a human hand, so I can tell people, talk to the hand, you know. Okay. I have to make this joke, I have to get out, you know. But yeah, bad joke, I know, that's a signature Gabs jokes. So, but I think you had a question as well?
No, also just a comment to
Yes?
this whole embodiment of other characters than real selves, and also embodying other sexes and so on. I think this is really great. That gives this safe space to begin with, since it's a new technology, or since it's like emerging spaces. But once they grow bigger, the question comes up of how to preserve this sort of freedom. But maybe you have to split up these small metaverses into new safe spaces, or do you have to maybe you disown the company who's running it all, to like not expose those people that are. Yeah, this is like just thoughts that also came up when you mentioned this, right? Because I believe the safety is very important. It's like a theater class. You don't let them on the street, but you should let them on the street.
Yeah.
So you have to think about the political aspects of this as well. And that's
there's a really interesting
that's happening in my head when I hear this.
Sorry to interrupt, but there's a really a great initiative that is actually like it's called the XRSI. I don't know if you know it, like the XR Safety Initiative, and their sole purpose is to like they dedicate themselves into finding all the safety loops, let's say, in virtual worlds and in VR in general, in XR in general, and to make this question and assess them directly, you know. And I think this is like the beauty of what's happening right now, and this is going back to the importance of the talk that we're having right now, that we need people from different fields talking together to create this, especially when we talk about the metaverse, it's like the trending word of the moment, you know. We cannot just limit ourselves to talk about technology. Like we just, it's simply like, it's like talking about AI and not understanding how a brain works, you know, just trying to imitate something that we don't fully understand. I mean, these conversations with technology and humanity have to happen at the same time, you know, so yeah. I joke. No, I'm kidding. Sorry, you wanted to say something for like 20 minutes. I was like, sorry.
It was about the same thing, more or less. I think still also what you mentioned about roleplay, or that the danger is that actually you, as I said, you split stuff that you are actually not able to live in your real life, whatever that is. I think still the point is the point of awareness. I mean, you can, as a grown-up at least, hopefully, make the decision, okay, I'm going to a space where I can be a dancing fox or whatever, I don't know, a bird, whatever, but you have to be able to distinguish as well, okay, this is, I'm entering another room. And this is also something that I would say is important when we're talking about presence. I mean, presence is still being present in a certain world or in a room. And if I take the conscious decision, okay, I step in and I step out, then I still have the awareness that if I want to have that fully in my life, that I have to make a change in my real life and not just practice it in VR. So it's...
I'm sorry to point this out, but that doesn't even work with Facebook.
Depending on your personality, I would say.
Yes, but you know, as a...
Yeah, sure.
As a social space, you mean, yeah?
It's economic dependency, maybe. Like for a lot of artists, these social networks became a horrible existence foundation, basically. For them, it's hard to escape.
But it's still then, I mean, everybody who has to advertise in Instagram knows, okay, I'm doing advertising on Instagram,
yeah, but they
it's not
study
me.
something where they were trained in its perception.
But two things, sorry to interrupt, but two things. We have exactly 3 more minutes for questions. And 3 more minutes for the question and the answer. So who wants to be a grand finale? Stefan had a question first. Okay, Stefan?
A question regarding how to choose your body in VR. As a perspective, I try to take the perspective of biology. And there I learned, for example, beers. Brown beers, for example, make it clear, they have a very limited ability to fluently show their expressions, their feelings, and this limits them in social interaction very much. So maybe it's not what body you choose for VR, but it's if the body you choose is able to give you the possibility for a fluent expression of what you try to express their feelings or the other stuff. So maybe the bird is good as long as the bird is able to give you the possibility to fluently show the whole spectrum of what you have to express for social interaction. So it's not what kind of body, but a body with abilities.
Yeah, if the body can represent what you're trying to express. That's beautiful. It was like the beautiful grand finale that we needed for this Fireside chat. But thank you very much, Stefan, for this lovely insights, and a very important one as well, no? To think beyond what, like, our human-centric approach to express ourselves, but also, okay, if I want to embody something else, I have to understand this something else that I want to embody as well, no? It's not a unilateral conversation, no? So, I just wanted to say, sorry, Klaus, Vera, and Gersa will be available. Yeah, I'm like already thinking about a million questions, but I will save myself. They will be available for your questions when we finished here. So please grab a beer, grab a wine, and share a conversation with them, and share a conversation with one another. So. I will just connect it with the final words, if that's okay, like while we sit here comfortably. And first of all, thank you very much for having set up aside time for being here today. Thank you so much to all of you for being here today, and actually for putting up with our freestyling in a lot of ways, because we're getting used to be like in our bodies in real life again. So thank you very much for your support and for your engagement as well in the community. So we hope it's not that it's the first time for many of you, that it's not the last time that we're going to see you. And we also hope that you continue this conversation in the virtual world. So we also call the virtual world Discord. Like, we chose Discord to be our new platform right now because we find it a bit less intrusive than other platforms, and also gives us a bit more flexibility to document, but to make an archive of the things that we share, for example, like in a non-intrusive and decentralized way, let's say. So whoever doesn't have the Discord link yet, please feel free to contact Flavia or me or Manu or Axel, and we will be happy to provide it for you. And
yeah, we also have one experience corner, so I just invite everyone to go. I think not everyone will be able to try it tonight, but we have a television, so you can also see what is happening, which is working, or yes. And so you have the possibility to see what is happening and to really try something out, and also to network and share. So we are here, and there is a lot of space, and we are super happy to connect with you.
Absolutely. And two last things, and then we let you go to have a drink and start interesting conversations. Like, first of all, thank you very much to Talent Garden for allowing us to be here. Like, I'm kissing the streaming, you know, because like, hopefully they're going to watch it later. Also, of course, for the XRVienna team, and also Vrisch and Imiria, who invested time and resources to make this happen. And I will stand up to say this because it's very very important, at least for me, to say that we are in the business, or to say in VR, to understand human emotions and to understand different realities and to understand our context in different ways. So we are no strangers into what to do with this. These are difficult times for all of us in many different ways. I mean, we lived a lot. Like we were going through a pandemic, for Christ's sake, you know, to say that, you know, and now we're hearing what's happening with Ukraine, we're hearing about what's happening in the world, and sometimes we think, like, how are we going to help others, you know, like, how are we going to help the world getting better, right? I mean, there's so many things that we can do, and sometimes we think that the only way that we can help is actually helping directly, right, and we don't know where to start. So in my humble experience, like, the best way to start is by helping one another. You know, support the person that you have next to you. You know, like, support like someone that you know is in need of love or compassion. You know, like, support, encourage, empower this person, because you don't know if this person is going to be the next person that is going to change the world. So, that being said, thank you very much for being here. I'm dying to have a wine with you. So thank you so much, and have a great rest of the evening.
Thank you.
Like, we have like to put it there. So just feel free to go to my computer and play your playlist, you know, like, it's fine.